Hello, everyone. Welcome to Superhero with a Cane, podcast number 12. It's been several weeks since we did one, but we're trying to work this out. So, thank you again. We're up at, my son Michael's up at 6, doing this before he goes to work. So, thank you for getting this out. Thumbs up. So, today's topic, you got to bear with me. I've been recently like approached. I met somebody a couple weeks ago who came to do some work at the house, and of course he finds out I have MS, and he wants to suggest a someone who cured their MS with some their miracle treatment. And since then, I've done a couple posts which brought I've gotten messages from folks who have someone they want to recommend, which is awesome. I really appreciate that. Um, I guess so. Today, what I want to talk about is how do we decide um, how much time and what we invest into alternative treatments, holistic treatments. Do we do it at all? And it's really a case by case basis. Um, you know, I'm living with primary progressive MS, which is after being re-diagnosed about 4 years ago. Um, that originally I was diagnosed, which what I was believed to be going into secondary progressive MS. So I've had symptoms for years. It started out with, like I mentioned, with the thought I had Lyme disease and a bunch of other Epstein-Barr and a bunch of other issues. So once again, like there are disease-modifying therapies. There are drugs. So many more drugs today than there were. You know, even, I talk about this on my support group 20 years ago, and so the fact that they actually have drugs that can slow down the progression is awesome. Where it gets hairy is what type of MS do you actually have? What are your symptoms? How does your MS affect you? So I personally have, when it comes to seeking out alternative treatments and holistic treatments, I personally have looked into. I went to a functional medicine doctor at one point. Um, gluten-free organic diet. I worked with a nutritionist who supposedly cured her MS, um, and she went on to help me. Me and my wife looked into stem cell years ago. Um, Stem cell is not FDA approved, so it's all out of pocket. We would have had to have a fundraiser to make this happen. Um, and one of the things I also did was something that many of you have probably heard, Terry Walls, that created the Walls Protocol. It's basically a way of eating, a way of changing your diet so that way you're um, filling your body full of good things that will rebuild the mitochondria, which will eventually lead to myelin repair. And that's what this all comes down to is MS is the demyelination of your nervous system. So much like that, if you could picture the wire, if it's picture a thermostat wire, copper wire with a plastic coating on it, and your body attacks that plastic coating so that way the wire becomes exposed. And imagine now your nervous system, running from your brain down to your spinal cord to all over your body, trying to tell your body what to do. If your body demyelinates, then there's going to be spots that create, the lesions, hot spots where there's just so much scarring, depending on where your lesions are, will depend on your symptoms. So it is such a battle to figure out what we choose. And I mentioned this all started with, I've gotten some messages, and I've gotten people's offers to have me go see their doctor. Well, I'm personally at the point where I have done so much, researched so much, been to see so many people that I kind of know what and what doesn't work for me. And at this point in our lives, after MS has created so many issues for us financially, and there's only so much you can do. There's only so far you can go. I've only got so much energy, so I can't drive over an hour to a place to go speak to someone. I need to do my homework first and make sure I'm educated about this. So one thing I hope, I feel like it much of the time, but one thing I hope that people will realize is I'm not an idiot. I think I'm very logical at times, and at the right time of day these days. I really think things through. So for me, it comes down to myelin repair. That's what I believe is important. So much that I even Dr. Mowry at Johns Hopkins, I was great enough to respond to email I sent her, because they're working on, and Johns Hopkins is one of the primary beneficiaries of the recipients of what MS for MS. When they raise funds, they give a large donation to Johns Hopkins in their MS center, and Dr. Mowry is very much in charge of that. And what they do is they work on myelin repair. They're trying to come up with ways to fix the myelin, which is if your nervous system is exposed. If they're working on ways to fix the myelin, then why shouldn't that be my focus? I've always been, I believe in science. I believe that if you break it down scientifically, you can look at things in a black and white type matter. There's certainly things that are gray, but when it comes to science, I think things are very black and white. And so for me, in this disease where there's no cure, I have to go back to logic and to the science and what makes sense. So what that does, if we go back to, I've been through, I mentioned I've seen a functional medicine doctor, I've been to an Atlas orthogonal chiropractor that adjusts your head just right on your atlas of your neck. I've been gluten-free organic. I've done the Walls protocol. I've looked into stem cell. They would not take me. At stem cell, we got to the point where we actually got a doctor on the phone after looking at my records over and over again. And the doctor flat out said, stem cell could kill you. And it will not, for me, a lot of my issues are cognitive, fatigue, as well as physical. And the doctors said that this will not fix your cognitive and fatigue issues. And it could kill you, and did not suggest it for me. So, but I don't want to quit, and you never want to quit. You always want to keep going. So for me, the thing that makes the most sense is myelin repair. Now, something that I mentioned, I've always been a science guy, and I'm going to tell a quick story that has nothing to do with this, but I grew up with, my mom was paralyzed since the time I was born. she decided to have me after finding out she had a brain tumor. So um, back, I was born in 1967. Her and my dad went beyond the advice of their doctor, and she got pregnant with me. And even though they said you should not have another kid, so um, they had to take when she gave birth. It was too much stress. She ended up staying in the hospital. I went home to live with my grandparents. They had to remove a large chunk of her brain that controlled her ability to walk. She's paralyzed. So fast forward till I'm 11, 12 years old. My parents have now become, born again Christians. Okay, God bless them. And they're dragging me along to certain events. So we go to see this faith healer. Father Diorio was his name, and they're praying over my mother. My mother's going to get up and walk. And I remember sitting there. There was it's at Elizabeth High School. The auditorium was full of probably a few hundred people, if not more. And I remember sitting there going, wait, at 11, 12 years old, I'm going, wait, they removed the part of her brain that allows her the ability to walk. And you're praying over her that she's going to get up and walk. That makes zero sense to me. And of course, when she couldn't get up and walk, it was because her faith wasn't strong enough, she was told, and other things like that. So as an 11, 12-year-old, I always revert back to science. And the science made no sense. My mother wasn't going to walk because her brain, the part of her brain that let her walk, was not there anymore. Now that I'm living with primary progressive MS, I realize that there's no cure. I realize that it's all revolves around the myelin sheath over the nervous system being deteriorated. But one thing I can do is focus on there's ways to repair that myelin. So if they don't have a cure yet through Johns Hopkins and they're working on it, one thing that Terry Walls, the Walls protocol, actually came up with was a way to rebuild the mitochondria so that way your cells produce myelin. And it has to do with the type, what you're putting in your body. And I realized that I have not been as strict as I once was with, I took that from the Walsh protocol, and I used to eat 3 times a day. I would eat my greens, which gave me a certain level of vitamins, my sulfur, and my my colored vegetables, which would give me the vitamins needed. Along with that, there are other there's other good fats that you're supposed to eat. It's almost like a paleo type scenario. And that the goal behind this is so that way your body produces the mitochondria, which are cells. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but bear with me. Which are cells, which then replace the myelin sheath. So I realized in the past several weeks, to tie this all together, the past several weeks that people want to help, which is absolutely awesome. But it has to work with me, with what I'm able to do, with what my family's able to do, and what I'm able to go participate in. And there's only so much energy I have. So for me, I can't just be driving off, an hour plus places to go visit with somebody because someone that does not have a clue about multiple sclerosis, let alone primary progressive MS, which is its own disease, I'm told, they don't have a clue, and they want you to go see this doctor because they're an alternative medicine doctor or they believe in holistic medicine. I mean, that is awesome, but that's not going to help me. I'm going to look at the science behind it. So, one thing that I have done, and this has happened in the past several days, is I've gone back to eating my 3 times a day through Walsh protocol, eating the greens, the sulfurs, the color vegetables, and trying to put more good fat into my body. with the hope of rebuilding my own mitochondria. Now, if one day Johns Hopkins or someone else comes up with a way to do that, then I'm on board. But in the meantime, it's up to me to choose that I'll put that energy into it. You okay? All right. It's up to me to choose what energy I'm going to put into this. So right now, I'm going back to, and trust me, if anyone that has looked at the Walsh Protocol, it is tough. I mean, I've had to. She's a scientist, so she's. I've had to look at TED Talks and other videos she's done to get to the heart of this, and I may not be able to, I did it strict for, the issue is that Terry Walls, when she created the Walsh Protocol, she said that she doesn't speak of, at least, her cognitive issues or any fatigue or things like that. She talks about physical issues, being flat on her back, not being able to walk, things like that, or being in a wheelchair. She said after 3 months, she was able to walk with a cane. After 5 months, she was riding a bike. Well, I've been on the Walsh Protocol. I've done it extremely strict for almost 4 months, and I saw, no improvement at the time. And this was going back probably right after I got diagnosed, 2012, 13, something like that. So, but in the meantime, I'm saying, like, what can it hurt? I'm going to go back, and I'm going to be much stricter with my diet. I'm going to put only these good vegetables and good fats into my body that will create the mitochondria and create the good cells to replace the myelin sheath. If it can, there's still no cure. They don't know why this happens, and they're working on it. But at least I can do my part. And for me, logically, I exercise. I don't eat a lot as it is, and I don't eat. It's not like I'm running out to McDonald's once a day. I never eat that crap. It might be, once a month, if that. I put something like that in my body. So I am, or I have already started replacing my habits with more greens, making sure I'm eating the quantities she's talking about, better fats, and I'm going to work on the mitochondria myself. Again, this goes back to just being logical. Only you know about your the science behind your disease, and it is your disease. Everyone's disease is so different. So me living with primary progressive MS, I was re-diagnosed with this after I thought I was living with secondary progressive for all these years. So I don't even know if this will help me, but what the hell, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to be eating even healthier than I already was and putting more of these good cells into my body with the hopes of rebuilding my own mitochondria. Maybe it's not realistic, but what the hell, you got to try. So anyway, if trying to make a decision of what alternative or holistic methods you should seek, make a list. Be logical about it. Do your homework. Be your own advocate, but never give up. Okay, I am out.